I never imagined I would walk into my own study and find my son digging through my private financial folders with the confidence of someone who already owned everything inside them. He did not look up right away. His eyes scanned page after page, his fingers tapping as if calculating what was his and what I no longer deserved to control. When he finally looked at me, there was no guilt. There was authority. "Dad, we need to talk," he said. "You're spending too much money, and frankly, it's time I take control of things before you ruin what Mom and I built." My chest tightened, not from fear, but from a wave of disappointment I can never fully describe. I watched my only son talk to me like a stranger taking over a failing company. He was not here out of concern. He was here for power. I stayed silent and stepped closer. He held up one of my documents with a slight smirk, the kind someone gives when they believe the argument is already won. "You gave $40,000 to Aunt Hannah," he said. "For what? She is Mom's sister, not your responsibility. This is reckless. You are not thinking clearly anymore." I did not argue. I picked up my phone, dialed a number I had memorized for years, and said 4 words I knew would change everything. "It's time. Deliver it." Nathan frowned. "Deliver what?" he asked. I walked to the desk drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. It was crisp, untouched, sealed in blue wax with my wife's initials engraved into it. I had kept it hidden, not because I was afraid of my son, but because I was waiting for this exact moment. The moment his true intention would no longer be hidden behind polite visits and forced concern. "This is from your mother," I said, handing it to him. He hesitated, eyes locked on the seal as if it were glowing. Then he tore it open, confident that it would prove he was right, confident that his mother's words, even after death, would be on his side. But when he began to read, his face changed. The color drained from his cheeks. His hands began to shake so violently the letter rustled in his grip. His lips moved, but no sound. All I asked was, "Do you understand now?" And for the first time in years, my son had no answer. If you are watching this, stay with me, because what was written in that letter was not a message from the past, a decision that would change the future of our family forever. Comment below where you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because the truth my son will shock you. My name is James Rowan. I am 68 years old, and people assume that at this age, a man slows down, gives up control, and lets the next generation decide what is best. Maybe that is true for some, but not for me. I spent 40 years of my life working as an architect, designing homes that would last for generations. I believed in building with strength, not only in walls and roofs, but in character and family. My wife, Grace, was the heart of everything I built. She was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make everyone feel seen. She believed in kindness, generosity, and helping people no one else would help. Our only son, Nathan, did not inherit that part of her. He inherited her intelligence, her strategic mind, but not her compassion. When Grace passed away from heart failure 3 years ago, something inside our home changed. Nathan began visiting more often, but I could always feel a tension in the air. He would walk through each room as if calculating value, not memories. He would ask about my spending, not my health. And when I donated to charities Grace supported, or sent financial help to her sister Hannah, he would shake his head and say I was being taken advantage of. To him, money was security. To Grace, it was a responsibility. I still remember her last words to me about Nathan. She said, "Our son is smart, but he measures life by gain and loss. One day, he will face a situation where he must choose between control and love, and when that day comes, he must face the truth, even if it hurts." I did not understand at the time that she had already prepared for that day. What she left behind was more than a will. It was a reflection of who she believed our son had become. After she passed, I tried to maintain peace with Nathan. I invited him for dinner every Sunday. He always came, but the conversations were never about life, family, or memories. They were about numbers, percentages, and financial projections. He would say things like, "Dad, if you let me manage your accounts, you could grow your capital by 20% in 6 months. Or, you don't need to be donating money when you should be protecting your legacy." Protecting my legacy was never the issue. Protecting my wife's final wishes was. The house I live in now is the same house Grace and I built together, brick by brick. Every room holds a memory. The swing in the backyard still creaks in the same rhythm she loved. The garden still grows the roses she planted, and every time I look out the kitchen window, I can almost see her standing there, laughing as the sun hit her hair just right. Nathan sees that window and sees real estate value. That is the difference. What my son did not know was that I was not losing control. I was holding on to a promise to Grace that her voice would never be silenced, even after it was gone. This story is not just about money. It is about truth, love, and the moment a father confronts the son he raised. Stay with me, because what happens next will make you question how well you really know the closest to you. Comment your state or country below and subscribe to follow this story to the end. The day everything shifted began like any other Sunday. Nathan arrived right on, as he always did, not out of routine love, but out of strategic predictability. He walked in without knocking, glanced around the living room the way a surveyor inspects a site, then commented, "Dad, you really should consider downsizing. This place is too much for you now." I didn't respond. I simply watched him. There was something different in his eyes. He wasn't casually suggesting anymore. He was preparing to make a move. After dinner, while I was washing dishes, I noticed Nathan had gone quiet. When I dried my hands and stepped into my study, I saw him sitting at my desk with my financial folders laid out like evidence at a trial. He didn't even hide what he was doing. He had pulled out every file related to the trust, the will, Grace's investments, and documents connected to my personal spending. "Dad," he said firmly as he flipped through the pages, "this is worse than I thought. You've spent almost $200,000 in the last year on things that are not investments. Donations, medical grants, personal gifts. This is concerning." I asked, "Concerning to whom?" He looked up and answered without hesitation, "To our family stability, to my future." His future. Not mine, not Grace's wishes, his own plans. I took a step forward, trying to keep my voice even. "Those donations were made in your mother's name. She made me promise to continue supporting the causes she cared about." Nathan leaned back in the chair, shaking his head like a man correcting a child. "Mom is gone, Dad. You need to live in reality. You can't keep throwing money away on emotional gestures. You're being irresponsible." There it was. The dismissal of Grace's legacy. The reduction of her entire life's compassion into a category he labeled emotional. I could hear Grace's voice in my memory, soft yet unwavering, telling me that one day our son would face a choice: control or conscience. I asked him what he planned to do about it. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents clipped together. "These are guardianship papers. It's called durable financial control. All you need to do is sign. It will protect you from any mismanagement and make sure your assets are handled with care." "Handled by whom?" I asked, though I already knew. "By me," he replied. "Your son, the one person who actually knows how to grow this money instead of waste it." I sat down across from him and looked directly into his eyes. "You think I'm incapable?" He didn't hesitate. "I think you're grieving and not thinking straight. You're vulnerable. I'm doing what Mom would want." That is when the air in the room changed. He had invoked her name as a weapon, not in reverence. The woman who spent her life giving, who believed that blessings were only meaningful when shared, was now being used as justification for control and greed. He had no idea she had seen this in him long before I did. I asked, quietly, "And what about the money your mother transferred to you before she died? The money you promised to invest and return to her account?" His jaw clenched. For the first time, his voice lost its calm confidence. "That was different. The market collapsed. You know that." Grace's voice echoed in my heart. She had told me, near the end, that she didn't regret what she gave him, but she regretted that he saw her kindness as weakness. She had said, "He needs to understand that love is not a currency." As I looked at him now, forcing me to sign away my independence, I understood exactly what she meant. This wasn't about protecting me. This was about claiming ownership over everything she left behind. I stood up and walked to the window, the same window where Grace stood every morning with her coffee, watching the sunrise. The same window Nathan had once looked through as a little boy, telling his mother he wanted to grow up to be just like her, brave and kind. Somewhere along the way, that little boy had disappeared. Nathan followed my gaze and said, almost impatiently, "Dad, I'm trying to help you. Please don't make this difficult." I turned to face him. "No, Nathan, you're trying to control me. And that is the most dangerous thing a child can do to a parent. Because when you try to take control of someone's life, you are not protecting them. You're erasing them." He didn't back down. He placed the guardianship papers on the desk and slid a pen toward me with finality. And in that instant, I made my decision. Not with anger, not with fear, but with the clarity of a man who knows his next move will determine the legacy of his family. Because what Nathan did not know was that this moment had already been predicted by the one person he thought would always support him, his mother. Nathan didn't realize that by handing me those guardianship papers, he had stepped exactly where his mother always feared he would. It wasn't the first time he tried to take control of someone else's life. Years ago, when Grace was still alive, he had convinced her to invest a portion of her inheritance into his private venture, promising steady returns. She trusted him, not because she was naive, but because she believed in family. When the business failed and the money disappeared, he called it a market fluctuation. Grace never confronted him, never held resentment against him, but that day changed something inside her. She told me quietly, "He will keep reaching until someone stops him. If I am not here, you must be ready." As Nathan sat across from me with that pen in hand, I felt Grace's presence stronger than ever. I knew that signing those papers would not just strip me of power, it would erase every intention Grace set for our family. So I did what I had been preparing to do for 3 years. I played the role he expected. I nodded slowly and said, "Maybe you are right. Maybe it is time." The look in his eyes shifted from frustration to vindication. He believed he had won. He believed I had surrendered. But in reality, I was unlocking the final step of a plan Grace and I put in motion before she died. I reached into the drawer and retrieved a secure phone, one I kept for only one purpose. I dialed the number of attorney William Cross, Grace's personal legal advisor, and the only person besides me who knew the full truth. The phone rang once before he answered. "It's time," I said. There was no hesitation. He responded, "Understood. I will begin the proceedings immediately." Nathan's eyebrows pulled together. "What proceedings? Dad, what did you just do?" Instead of answering, I walked to the bookshelf and pressed the hidden latch behind Grace's favorite photo frame. The wooden panel swung open, revealing a safe. Nathan stood up, anger creeping across his face. "Dad, what is going on?" I entered the code, a date Nathan always believed was my anniversary with Grace, but was actually the date Grace established the Rowan Legacy Trust. A trust designed not to protect assets, but to protect intention. The safe opened, revealing a single blue folder sealed with wax. On the front was Grace's signature, and one sentence in her handwriting: "To be opened only when our son forgets who we raised him to be." I held it gently, feeling the weight of her trust in my hands. As I turned back to Nathan, I saw something unexpected. Not fear, not guilt, but irritation, as if everything I was doing was merely an inconvenience standing between him and what he believed was his rightful control. "Dad, this is unnecessary," he said sharply. "If you have legal documents, I should be the one managing them. You're making emotional decisions. This is exactly why you need oversight." His words confirmed Grace's fears. He did not see me as his father anymore. He saw me as an asset. I sat back down, placed the folder in front of him, and said, "Before you make judgments, read what your mother wrote." He hesitated, then broke the wax seal. As he opened the folder, I could see his confidence faltering. The letter began not with legal language, but with something far more powerful, a mother's truth. "Nathan, if you are reading this, it means you have tried to take control of your father's life the way you once tried to control mine. You are not being punished. You are being reminded that love is not a form of property, and family is not a corporation." His eyes began to scan faster, the emotion in his face changing with each line. "Before I died, I transferred every major asset, including the family home, the investment accounts, and our savings, into an irrevocable trust. Hannah Cooper has been appointed as trustee. Your father remains the sole decision-maker of his well-being until his last day. Upon his passing, all decisions regarding this estate will be determined based on the actions you take from this moment forward, not based on blood, but on character. Nathan's breathing changed. His jaw tightened. He continued reading. If you attempt to force control, challenge his independence, or manipulate him under the claim of protection, you will automatically be excluded from this family trust. If, however, you choose compassion, respect, and care, then the trust permits the trustee to release your inheritance. Your fate is in your hands, not by right, but by merit. Nathan put the letter down slowly. His hands were no longer steady. In that moment, he didn't just see legal consequences. He saw judgment. Not from me, but from his mother, the one person whose approval he had always believed he already possessed. As the silence settled, I looked him in the eye and said, "Your mother did not write this to punish you. She wrote it, hoping to save you." That was the turning point, not legally, but spiritually. It was the moment Nathan could no longer pretend his actions were justified. The power he sought was no longer his to take, it was his to earn, and the choice would be his alone. Nathan sat frozen, the letter trembling in his hands as if it carried the weight of every choice he had made in silence. His eyes stayed glued to the page, but his mind was clearly trying to escape what was written. His lips parted, but no words came. For years, he believed he was the smartest man in every room. He built his life on control, and in a single moment, that control evaporated. Not because of legal power, but because of moral. He wasn't facing me anymore. He was facing the voice of the one person he never expected to stand against him, his mother. He finally looked up at me, confusion, anger shifting across his expression. She thought I would try to take everything from you? His voice cracked, a rare tremor of vulnerability breaking through the polished confidence he always carried. I leaned forward, keeping my tone. She didn't think you would. She knew you might. There's a difference. She trusted you with her heart, but not with her legacy. She believed you could become a better man, but only if you were forced to face yourself. Nathan stood abruptly, pacing the room, one hand still clinging to the letter. This is manipulative, Dad. She was emotional before she died. She wasn't thinking clearly. Aunt Hannah must have influenced her. That accusation struck something inside me. Not anger, but sadness. Even now, he couldn't accept responsibility. He had to find someone to blame. Nathan, I said steadily, your mother wrote that letter in full health, 2 years before she passed. She had it witnessed, notarized, and sealed under legal protection. No one influenced her. She was prepared, and she knew exactly who you were becoming. He turned to me, eyes sharp. So that's it? I'm cut out? You'd rather hand everything to Aunt Hannah than to your own son? This isn't about money, I replied. This is about character. Your inheritance is not gone. It is waiting, but it will only be given if you live by the values your mother raised you with. Empathy, humility, respect. Nathan's chest rose and fell rapidly. He was breathing like a man who had been punched in the gut. I could see the battle happening inside him. His pride was screaming. His conscience was whispering. He turned away, staring out the window, the same window his mother loved. The afternoon sun spilled gently across the floor, lighting up the photograph of her smiling in the garden. Suddenly, the room no longer felt like a battleground. It felt like a sanctuary, and the silence between us wasn't filled with tension anymore. It was filled with truth. Nathan spoke again, but this time his voice was softer. So, all these years, you knew about the money I lost, and you never confronted me? I wasn't protecting the money, I answered. I was protecting you. Your mother believed that grace, not punishment, leads to change. He exhaled slowly, as if that truth had taken the air out of him. For the first time in this entire confrontation, he no longer looked like a man ready to fight. He looked like a son who had just realized how deeply he had disappointed the woman he loved most. He sat back down, this time not in defiance, but in defeat. Not the defeat of losing money, but the defeat of facing himself. He ran his hand across his forehead. Dad, I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I knew better. I thought protecting your money meant protecting you. I nodded. Protecting someone means listening to them, not overpowering them. Your mother did not leave you out. She left you a choice. She believed you were capable of becoming a man worthy of leading this family, not by authority, but by integrity. Nathan swallowed hard. And if I don't change, then the trust remains untouched, and everything goes to charity in your mother's name, I said. It was her last wish. He closed his eyes slowly, not in anger this time, but in surrender. The letter was more than legal instruction. It was a mirror that showed Nathan not the man he pretended to be, but the man he had become. And standing there in the quiet of that room, with the afternoon light casting long shadows across my study, he finally asked the question I had been waiting for. What do I do now? I didn't answer right away. I let the silence sit in the air, letting Grace's words carry weight beyond the grave. After a moment, I said, you decide who you want to be when no one is watching, and only then, only when you choose love over control, family over ego, will you truly be ready to lead anything. Nathan looked back at the letter and placed his hand flat on it, almost as if he were touching his mother's hand. His shoulders lowered, his expression changed, the arrogance was gone, and in that moment, the climax was not a moment of dramatic explosion. It was a moment of profound awakening. If you are still watching, ask yourself, what would you choose? Control or love? Make sure you subscribe and tell me in the comments what you think Nathan will do next, because this story is far from over. Nathan stayed seated for a long time, staring at the letter as if he was reading not just his mother's words, but every silent expression she had ever given him. The house felt quieter than it ever had, not empty, but sacred. He ran his hand across the edge of the paper one last time, before gently folding it and placing it back into the envelope. When his eyes met mine, there was none of the sharpness or superiority I had grown used to seeing in him. Instead, there was something I had not seen in many years. Honesty. Not the kind expressed in words, but the kind that comes from a man standing at the edge of his own reflection, finally recognizing what he has become. I never realized how far I had drifted, he said quietly. I thought success was the answer to everything. I thought if I could manage the money, I could manage the pain of losing Mom. Grief wears many masks. Some people cry, some isolate. Nathan armored himself with control. To him, numbers were predictable. Money could be organized, contained, controlled. Emotions could not. I watched him, not with judgment, but with the kind of understanding only a father can have when he sees his child stripped of pride and left with only truth. Your mother never wanted to control you, I said. She wanted to guide you. This letter wasn't a punishment. It was her final act of love. He nodded, though his eyes glistened with emotion he was struggling to contain. He stood and walked slowly across the room, stopping by the window. The sun had lowered, casting a golden glow across the garden. Grace's garden, the one Nathan once helped her plant when he was 12. I remember that day clearly. Grace had handed him a small shovel and said, when you plant something, you promise to care for it, to nurture it. That is how you prove you deserve to watch it grow. She wasn't talking about flowers. She was talking about life. Nathan turned back to me. What happens now? He asked, not as a demand, but as a genuine question. That depends on you, I said. The trust isn't locked against you. It's open to you, but only when you demonstrate the values your mother wanted to see in the next generation of this family. Not control, compassion, not ownership, stewardship. His face softened at the word stewardship, the same word Grace had often used. She would say, we are not owners of what we have. We are caretakers. What we leave behind is not money. It is how we made the world better with it. For the first time in this entire journey, I saw those words reach him. Nathan walked toward me slowly, the weight of years of misunderstanding pressing down on his shoulders. Dad, he said, his voice steady but filled with regret. I don't want to be the man Mom was worried I would become. I want to be the son she believed I could be. There was pain in his voice, but also resolve. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the guardianship papers he had brought, and without hesitation, tore them cleanly in half. The sound of tearing paper echoed through the room like a symbol of breaking chains. Not chains on me, but on him. "I came here to take control," he said, letting the pieces fall into the trash bin beside the desk. "But now I understand that control was never power. Love is." And I forgot that. When he sat down again, it wasn't as a man demanding authority, it was as a son seeking reconciliation. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. There was no need. The house felt full again, not with tension, but with peace. Grace's presence was there, not in body, but in legacy. Over the next weeks, Nathan visited not to review documents or to check on my assets, but simply to be present. He helped in the garden. He drove me to my doctor's appointment, not because he doubted my ability to drive, but because he wanted to spend time with me. He even reached out to Aunt Hannah, a woman he had once avoided, and apologized for the years he distanced himself. To my surprise, she embraced him, not with resentment, but with open arms. That was when I knew Grace's plan had worked. Her love had reached beyond her lifetime and transformed her son's heart. Life did not magically become perfect. There were still disagreements, moments of tension, moments where old instincts tried to resurface. But Nathan learned something profound. Control may give you leverage, but love gives you purpose. And so in the end, it was not the wealth, the trust, or the estate that defined this family's future. It was the return of a son, not to an inheritance, but to the values that built our family from the beginning. If you believe that love should always win over control, then hit subscribe and comment where you are watching from, because your story might be the next one that needs to be heard.